I counted them. 1, 2, 3. By the time his hand connected with my cheek for the 30th time, my lip was split, and the metallic taste of blood filled my mouth. But my heart had turned to absolute ice. My son Bradley thought he was teaching a stubborn old man a lesson in front of his laughing wife. He thought his youth and his rage gave him power. He did not know that while he was busy playing the tough guy, I was mentally signing the eviction notice. I am Garrison Ford. I am 68 years old. I spent 40 years building skyscrapers in Chicago, fighting Union No. 3's winter storms and city corruption. And this is the story of how I sold my son's house while he was sitting at his desk at work, unaware that his life was about to be demolished. If you have ever been betrayed by the very blood you sacrificed everything for, like this video and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you are watching from. It was a Tuesday night in February, and the wind off Lake Michigan was sharp enough to cut glass. I parked my 10-year-old sedan 2 blocks away from the Lakeshore Drive mansion because there was no room in the driveway. The driveway was filled with leased Porsches, spelled Porsches, and Range Rovers belonging to people who had never worked a day of hard labor in their lives. I walked against the wind, clutching a small package wrapped in brown paper. It was my son Bradley's 32nd birthday. The house looked magnificent from the outside. It should. I bought it 5 years ago. I paid cash for it after a particularly good year in commercial real estate. I let Bradley and his wife, Vanessa, live there. I told them it was their home. I never told them that the deed was held by a limited liability company called Bulldog Holdings, solely owned by me. To them, it was a gift. To me, it was a test they were failing miserably. I rang the doorbell. The bass from the music inside was vibrating the heavy oak door. Vanessa opened it. She was 28, beautiful in a plastic, manufactured way, and holding a glass of champagne that cost more than my first car. "Oh, it is you," she said. She did not move aside to let me in immediately. Her eyes scanned my coat. It was a good coat, wool, durable, but it was old. It did not fit the aesthetic of her party. "Happy birthday to Bradley," I said, stepping past her before she could block me. The warmth of the house hit me, carrying the scent of expensive perfume and something sweet and chemical. "He is in the living room, Garrison," she said, not calling me Dad. "Try not to embarrass him tonight. He has important clients here." I walked into the living room. It was crowded. I saw Bradley holding court near the fireplace. He looked good on the surface. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, a glass of scotch in his hand. But I know construction. I know how to spot a hairline fracture in a foundation before the building collapses. Bradley was sweating. His eyes were darting around the room, nervous, erratic. He was laughing too loud. I approached him. "Happy birthday, son." The room went quiet. His friends, a collection of sales directors and influencers, looked at me. I was the anomaly, the old man with calloused hands, in a room of manicured fingernails. "Dad," Bradley said. His voice was tight. "You made it." I handed him the package. It was his grandfather's watch, a 1945 mechanical piece that had been in our family for 3 generations. It was not flashy. It did not have diamonds. It was about heritage. It was about time. Bradley took it. He tore the paper. He looked at the old leather case and opened it. He stared at the watch for a second, and then he laughed. A short, cruel bark of a laugh. "Thanks, Dad," he said. He tossed the box onto a side table where empty glasses and used napkins were piled. It slid off the edge and fell into a trash bin filled with discarded wrapping paper. Vanessa giggled. "Oh, Bradley, be nice. Maybe we can sell it at a garage sale." I felt a tightening in my chest. Not anger, disappointment. The kind of disappointment that tastes like ash. I walked over and retrieved the watch from the trash. I put it back in my pocket. Can we talk? Bradley hissed, grabbing my arm. His grip was hard, too hard. He dragged me toward his home office, the library. I had built those shelves myself. I had installed that mahogany desk. He shoved me inside and locked the door. The music was muffled now. It was just us. I need money, Dad, he said. He did not waste time. He did not ask how I was. He went straight to the point. I looked at him. I retired 3 years ago, Bradley. You have a job. You live in a $2 million house for free. It is not enough, he shouted. He began to pace. He looked like a trapped animal. I owe people, bad people. I need $200,000 tonight. $200,000. I sat down in the leather chair. I looked at my son. I saw the tremors in his hands. I saw the dilated pupils. Gambling, I stated. It was not a question. It was an investment that went wrong. He lied. He always lied. Just write the check, Dad. You have it. I know you have it. You are sitting on a pile of cash from the business. I do have it, I said calmly. But I am not giving it to you. If I give it to you, you will gamble it away by Friday. You need help, Bradley. You need rehab. He stopped pacing. He looked at me with pure hatred. Vanessa slipped into the room from a side door that connected to the master bedroom. She had her phone out. She was recording. Tell him, Brad, she said, her voice dripping with poison. Tell the old miser, you are going to give me that money, Bradley said, his voice dropping to a whisper, or you are never going to see us again. You are going to die alone in that sad little apartment of yours. I stood up. I am leaving, Bradley. He blocked my path. You are not leaving until you sign a check. I tried to step around him. He shoved me back into the chair. The force of it knocked the wind out of me. Sign the check, old man. Vanessa urged from the corner. Teach him a lesson, babe. I looked at them. My son, my daughter-in-law. They looked like vultures. No, I said. Bradley's face turned a color I had never seen. It was purple with rage. He grabbed my collar with his left hand. He raised his right hand. You think you are tough? He screamed. You think because you poured concrete, you are tough. You are nothing. You are a wallet. That is all you are to us. And then he slapped me. It was not a punch. It was a slap. Disrespectful, sharp. It stung. My head snapped to the side. 1, I counted in my head. I looked back at him. Is that all you have? I asked quietly. He slapped me again, harder this time. My glasses flew off my face and skittered across the hardwood floor. 2. Sign it, he screamed. No. 3, 4, 5. He lost control. He was not hitting me to get the money anymore. He was hitting me because he hated me. He hated that I had earned my wealth and he had to beg for it. He hated that I had integrity and he had none. He was hitting his own conscience. Vanessa was laughing. She was holding the phone steady. Get a close-up of his face, she said. 6, 7, 8. I did not raise my hand. I did not block him. I sat there. I took it. I needed this. I needed to feel the physical pain to kill the emotional love I still held for him. I needed him to beat the father out of me. 9, 10, 11. My lips split. I tasted copper. Blood dripped onto my white shirt. 12, 13. He was panting now. Sweat was flying off his forehead. He was exerting himself. Beating an old man is hard work. 14, 15. Why won't you just die? He screamed. Why won't you just have a heart attack and leave us the money? It would be so much easier. 17. I focused on a spot on the wall, a painting of a ship in a storm. I had bought that painting in London. It was worth $5,000. I wondered if he knew that. I wondered if he would sell it for poker chips. 18, 19, 20. My left eye was swelling shut. The room was starting to blur, but my mind was crystal clear. It was sharper than it had been in 20 years. 21, 22. Vanessa moved closer. Kick him out, Brad. He is useless. He is bleeding on the rug. 23, 24, 25. He slowed down. His hand was hurting. He looked at his own palm, red and stinging. He looked at me. I was still sitting upright. I was not crying. I was not begging. 26, 27, 28. He gave me 3 final lazy slaps. Backhand, forehand, backhand, just to show contempt. 29. He stepped back, breathing heavy. He wiped his hand on his pants. Get out, he said. Get out of my house. Do not come back without the money. I stood up. My legs were shaky, but they held. I picked up my glasses. One lens was cracked. I put them on. The world looked fractured. That was appropriate. I looked at him. I looked at Vanessa. 30? I said. My voice was a croak, but it was steady. What? Bradley asked. 30 times, I said. I will remember that number. I walked to the door. I did not look back. I walked through the party. The guests went silent as they saw me, blood on my shirt, eyes swelling shut, lips split. I walked past them like a ghost. I opened the front door and stepped out into the snow. The cold was a shock. It froze the blood on my face instantly. I walked to my car. I got in. I did not turn the ignition on immediately. I sat there in the dark, shivering. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My fingers were stiff. I dialed a number I knew by heart. It rang twice. Jared, I said. Garrison, it is 10 o'clock on a Sunday. What is wrong? Your voice sounds terrible. Jared West, my lawyer, my shark, the man who knew where all the bodies were buried because he had helped me dig the holes legally. I am activating Clause 13, I said. There was a silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Jared knew what Clause 13 was. We had written it into the Bulldog Holdings operating agreement 5 years ago. It was the nuclear option. Are you sure? Garrison, Jared asked softly. Clause 13 is scorched earth. There is no coming back from that. It involves immediate liquidation. I touched my lip. I looked at the blood on my fingertip. I was just slapped 30 times by my son, Jared. He told me to die. He told me I was just a wallet. My God, Jared whispered. Do you want me to call the police? No, I said. Police are for protection. I do not want protection. I want destruction. Understood, Jared said. His voice shifted. It became cold, professional, lethal. What are your instructions? The house, I said. The Lakeshore Drive house. It is technically a rental property owned by Bulldog Holdings. Bradley is a tenant at will. He just violated the terms of the lease by assaulting the landlord. Correct, Jared said. We can evict him. It will take 30 days. No, I interrupted. I do not want an eviction. I want it gone. I want to sell it tonight. Tonight, Garrison? Real estate does not work like that. It does if you sell it to the right people, I said. Call Bulldog Flippers. Call that group that buys distressed properties for cash, the ones who buy teardowns. You mean the developers who strip the lots? Jared asked. They will offer you 50 cents on the dollar. You will lose $1 million in equity. I do not care about the money, I said. I want that house sold by noon tomorrow. I want the locks changed before he comes home from work. I want him to put his key in the door and realize he does not own a single brick. I can make some calls, Jared said. I can draft the paperwork tonight. If you are willing to take a massive loss, I can have a cash buyer lined up by 9 a.m. Do it, I said. And Jared, yes, cancel everything else. The credit cards I pay for, the car lease under the company name, the insurance, the country club membership, cut the strings, all of them. He is going to drown, Garrison. He has no assets. He has a wife, I said grimly. Let us see how long she stays when the credit card declines. I hung up the phone. I started the car. The heater kicked in, blowing warm air onto my frozen hands. I looked at the mansion one last time. I saw the lights. I heard the faint thump of the bass. They were still partying. They were drinking my champagne in my house, celebrating their victory over the old man. "Enjoy it, Bradley," I whispered to the empty car. "Enjoy the party because tomorrow the hangover is going to be fatal." I drove away. I did not go to a hospital. I went back to my apartment downtown. I cleaned my own wounds. I put ice on my eye. I stared at myself in the mirror. The face looking back at me was bruised and battered, but the eyes were different. The sadness was gone. The hesitation was gone. I sat at my kitchen table and waited for the sun to come up. I did not sleep. I watched the clock. 1945. My father's watch was still in my pocket. I took it out and set it on the table. It was ticking, steady, relentless. At 7 a.m., my phone rang. It was Jared. "It is done," he said. "I found a buyer, a commercial group called Titan Demolition. They want the land. They do not care about the house. They are wiring the funds at 10 a.m. They want possession at 12 p.m. "Perfect," I said. "Garrison," Jared warned, "this is going to get ugly. When they take possession, they are going to clear the house. They are not going to pack his things in bubble wrap. They are going to use a dumpster." "That is exactly what I am counting on," I said. I hung up. I stood up and put on a fresh suit. I tied my tie. My fingers were sore, but I managed. I grabbed my cane. I did not need it to walk, but I liked the weight of it. It was made of hickory, solid, heavy. It was Monday morning. Bradley would be at his office, hungover, trying to hide his gambling debts. Vanessa would be sleeping in until noon, dreaming of spending money she did not have. I checked my watch. 8 a.m. The countdown had begun. They had 4 hours left in their paradise. And I was going to enjoy every single second of their eviction. I walked out the door into the Chicago morning. The wind was still howling, but I did not feel the cold anymore. I was on a mission, and God help anyone who stood in my way. I arrived at Jared's office at 8:30 a.m. It was a glass tower in the loop. Jared was waiting for me in the conference room. He had a stack of documents 3 inches thick. "You look like you went 12 rounds with a heavyweight," he said, looking at my face. "I feel like I won," I replied. He slid the papers across the table. "This is the bill of sale. This is the transfer of deed. This is the immediate termination of the lease agreement due to criminal conduct. Sign here, here, and here." I signed. My signature was firm. Garrison Ford, Garrison Ford, Garrison Ford. With each stroke of the pen, I was severing a limb. "The wire transfer is set," Jared said. "Once the money hits our escrow account, the property belongs to Titan Demolition. They have a security team on standby." "Good," I said. "There is one more thing," Jared said. He pulled out a separate file. "I ran a background check on the debts Bradley mentioned. It is worse than you thought." "How bad?" "He owes $300,000 to a syndicate out of Cicero. These are not banks, Garrison. These are loan sharks. If he does not pay, they will hurt him." I looked at the skyline of Chicago. I thought about the 30 slaps. I thought about the hate in his eyes. He is a grown man, Jared. He made his choices. "You are leaving him to the wolves," Jared said quietly. "No," I said. "I am just stopping feeding the wolves for him." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Bradley. "Dad, sorry about last night. I was drunk. Stress is killing me. We need to talk about that check. I really need it today. Love you. Love you." The audacity. He slapped me 30 times and texted me, "Love you," because he needed money. I showed the text to Jared. "Do not reply," Jared advised. "I am not going to," I said. "I am going to let him think I am broken. I am going to let him think I am scrambling to get his money. Let him sit at his desk and sweat." At 9:55 a.m., the wire transfer came through. The house was sold. It was no longer mine. It was no longer his. It belonged to a corporation that viewed it as a tear-down lot. At 10 a.m., I got into my car with Jared. We followed the Titan demolition team. They were driving 3 large black SUVs and a massive dump truck. They looked like a military convoy. We drove north to Lakeshore Drive. The snow was falling harder now. It covered the streets in a white blanket, hiding the dirt, hiding the cracks. But it could not hide what was about to happen. We pulled up to the mansion at 10:45 a.m. The house was quiet. The curtains were drawn. Vanessa was inside sleeping. The lead security officer from Titan Demolition, a man named Brutus, who looked like he ate bricks for breakfast, walked up to my car. "Mr. Ford," he asked. "That is me. We have the deed. We have the writ of possession. Do you want to be the one to knock, or should we?" "You do it," I said. "I will watch from here." Brutus nodded. He signaled his team. 4 men in tactical gear walked up the driveway. They did not ring the doorbell. They did not knock politely. Brutus took out a master key tool. He popped the lock in 5 seconds. The door swung open. The alarm started blaring, a high-pitched scream that cut through the morning air. I rolled down my window. I wanted to hear it. Minutes later, I heard a different kind of scream. It was Vanessa. "Get out. Get out. Who are you?" I watched as the security team started bringing things out. They did not carry boxes. They carried armfuls of clothes, shoes, electronics. They walked to the curb and dumped them in the snow. A Gucci bag landed in a slush puddle. A PlayStation 5 crashed onto the concrete. A fur coat was tossed onto a bush. Vanessa ran out the front door. She was wearing a silk robe and slippers. She was screaming hysterically. She tried to grab Brutus's arm. He swatted her away like a fly. "Ma'am, this is private property," he boomed. "You are trespassing. Remove yourself from the premises, or you will be arrested." "This is my house," she shrieked. "My husband owns this house." Brutus laughed. He held up the deed. "Nobody named Ford owns this house, lady. Titan Demolition owns it, and we are clearing the debris." Debris. That is what he called their life. Vanessa pulled out her phone. She was shaking. She dialed Bradley. I sat in my car, warm and dry, and watched the show. My phone did not ring. Bradley was calling her, not me. He was about to find out that his bad day was turning into a catastrophe. The dump truck backed into the driveway. The men started tossing furniture into it. The expensive Italian leather sofa I had paid for, gone. The dining table, gone. It was ruthless. It was efficient. It was beautiful. Suddenly, a black BMW screeched around the corner. It was Bradley. He had left work. He drove up onto the lawn, tires spinning in the snow. He jumped out of the car, leaving the door open. "What are you doing?" he screamed. He ran toward Brutus. "Stop! Stop it!" I watched my son. He looked small. He looked powerless. Brutus stepped in front of him. He crossed his massive arms. "Back off, pal." "That is my stuff," Bradley yelled. "Not anymore," Brutus said. "Anything left in the property, after transfer of ownership, is considered abandoned. We are trashing it." Bradley looked around frantically. He saw the pile of clothes in the snow. He saw his wife crying on the sidewalk. And then he saw me. He saw my sedan parked across the street. He saw me sitting in the driver's seat watching him. He froze. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He ran across the street. He slipped on the ice, fell, scrambled up, and slammed his hands onto my car window. "Dad?" he screamed. "Dad? Stop them." "What did you do?" I rolled the window down 2 inches, just enough to hear him clearly, just enough to let the cold air hit his face. "I sold the house, Bradley," I said. "You what?" "You cannot sell my house." "It was never your house," I said. "It was my house, and I sold it. The new owners are very efficient, aren't they?" "You are crazy." "Where are we supposed to live? Where am I supposed to go?" I looked at him. I looked at the bruise forming on my own face in the rearview mirror. "I don't know," I said. But I hear the homeless shelters fill up fast in this weather. You better start running. I rolled the window up. He pounded on the glass. He screamed. He cried. I put the car in drive. I pulled away slowly, leaving him standing in the exhaust fumes, watching his life being hauled away in a dump truck. Act 1 was over, but I was not done, not even close. Because while he was losing his roof, I was about to make sure he lost his job, his reputation, and his freedom. The 30 slaps were just the down payment. Now I was coming to collect the interest. The morning sun over Chicago offered no warmth, just a blinding white glare that bounced off the snow and pierced through my cracked glasses lens. I sat in the leather chair across from Jared West, my lawyer, and the only man in this city I trusted with the location of the bodies. My face was a map of purple and blue bruises, the physical receipt of the 30 slaps my son had gifted me the night before. My left eye was swollen half shut, making Jared look like a blurry figure in a gray suit. But I did not need perfect vision to see the concern etched into his features. He was holding the property deed for the Lakeshore Drive mansion, the one Bradley had called home for 5 years, the one he had boasted about to his friends, the one he believed was his birthright. Jared looked at me, then at the document, and then back at me. Garrison, you need to understand that even with an eviction notice, the law favors the tenant. In Illinois, it could take 6 months to get him out, especially during winter. You cannot just sell a house that has people living in it. I leaned forward, and the movement sent a sharp jolt of pain through my ribs, reminding me why I was here. Jared, look at page 14, paragraph 3, subsection C of the occupancy agreement. Jared frowned and flipped the pages. He adjusted his reading glasses. He was silent for a long minute as he read the fine print. I saw his eyebrows shoot up. He looked at me with a mixture of shock and professional admiration. This is not a standard lease, Jared whispered. This is a conditional occupancy license based on good conduct. Exactly, I said, my voice raspy. 5 years ago, when I handed Bradley the keys, he was so excited to pop the champagne and post photos on Instagram that he did not read what he was signing. He thought it was just boring paperwork for the insurance. He never noticed that the house is owned by Bulldog Holdings, LLC, a company where I am the sole managing member, and he definitely did not notice the clause that states the license to occupy is immediately revoked without notice if the occupant commits any act of physical violence against the managing member. Jared let out a low whistle. You trapped him before he even moved in. I did not trap him, Jared. I insured myself. I built skyscrapers for 40 years. You never pour a foundation without accounting for the possibility of an earthquake. Bradley was always a tremor waiting to happen. Last night he finally caused the earthquake. So legally, he is trespassing right now, Jared said, tapping the paper. Legally, he is a stranger in my house, I confirmed, and I do not want to evict him. Eviction implies he has rights. I want to liquidate the asset. I want that house gone today. Jared sighed and leaned back. Okay, Garrison, you have the legal right, but finding a buyer in 8 hours who can pay cash and is willing to deal with a hostile occupant is impossible. You need a unicorn. No, I corrected him. I do not need a unicorn. I need a bulldog. Call Mike Vance. Jared froze. Mike Vance runs Bulldog Flippers. They do not buy luxury mansions, Garrison. They buy crack houses and foreclosures. They buy properties sight unseen for 50 cents on the dollar, and they gut them. They are ruthless. Call him, I repeated. Jared picked up the phone. He put it on speaker. The line rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. This is Mike. Mike, this is Jared West. I have Garrison Ford with me. We have a property. I am listening, Mike said. Lakeshore Drive, 4,000 square feet. Market value is 2.2 million. Silence on the other end. Then a scoff. We do not touch stuff that high-end, Jared. We flip volume, not museums. $800,000 cash, I said, leaning toward the phone. The silence on the other end was heavier this time. It was the silence of a shark smelling blood in the water. Who is this? Mike asked. Garrison Ford. I bought the property for cash 5 years ago. Title is clean. It is held by my LLC. I want to sell it to you for $800,000, but the wire has to hit my account by noon today. What is the catch, Garrison? Mike asked suspiciously. There is always a catch. Is it built on a toxic waste dump? The catch is the occupants, I said. My son and his wife are currently inside, or rather, their stuff is. They do not know it is being sold. You will have to handle the clean-out. And Mike, when I say clean-out, I mean I do not care if you use a shovel or a flamethrower. Mike laughed, a dry barking sound. So, you want a demolition crew, not a moving service. I want the problem gone, I said. I can have the money wired in an hour, Mike said, but I need to inspect the exterior first. I need to make sure the building is still standing. Go now, I said, but do not knock. Do not alert them. Just look and call us back. I hung up the phone. I checked my watch. It was 9:15 a.m. I pulled out my tablet and opened the security app connected to the smart cameras I had installed in the house 5 years ago. Another detail Bradley had forgotten, or was too lazy to change. I had admin access to everything. I cycled through the cameras. The kitchen was a mess. Empty champagne bottles and cake crumbs everywhere. The living room looked like a frat house after a bender. But the house was quiet. I checked the garage camera. Bradley's car was gone. He had gone to work. Of course he had. He was a sales director, and he had quotas to meet, especially if he needed money to pay off the gambling debts he had screamed about last night. He was sitting in his glass office right now, nursing a hangover and probably texting me apologies, thinking he could manipulate me like he always did. I checked the master bedroom camera. Empty. The bed was unmade. I checked the driveway camera. Vanessa's white Range Rover had left at 8:45 a.m. I opened the Find My Friends app. She had forgotten that she added me to her location sharing 3 years ago when we went on a family trip, and she wanted me to pick her up from the airport. She never removed me. Her dot was pulsing on the map at the Sanctuary Spa downtown. It was Monday morning. Her husband was drowning in debt. Her father-in-law had been beaten bloody in her home, and she was getting a hot stone massage. The audacity was breathtaking. It was almost impressive how disconnected from reality they were. They truly believed that consequences were things that happened to other people. They thought the Ford family name was a magic shield that would protect them from the rain. They did not realize that I was the one holding the umbrella, and I had just closed it. I looked at Jared. They are both out. The house is empty. Jared nodded slowly. He was drafting the bill of sale on his laptop. His fingers flew across the keys. He was a professional, but I could see he was unsettled. He had handled divorces and corporate hostile takeovers, but he had never seen a father clinically dismantle his son's life like this. Garrison, are you sure you do not want to keep the equity? Jared asked without looking up. You are throwing away over $1 million in profit. We could list it and sell it properly. It is not profit, Jared, I said, staring at the screen where my empty house sat silent and waiting. It is the cost of war. If I list it, it takes months. If I list it, they have time to beg, to squat, to fight. I do not want the money. I have plenty of money. I want the shock. I want them to come home tonight, expecting to sleep in their silk sheets, and find out they do not even have a door to unlock. That realization is worth $1 million to me. The phone rang. It was Mike. "I am outside," he said. "Nice place. Brickwork is solid. Roof looks new. You are crazy for selling this at 800, but I am not going to stop you. I have the wire ready. Send it." "I said one condition," Mike said. "I bring my own security. If your kid shows up and tries to start something, my guys handle it. I do not want any lawsuits from him claiming we broke his nose. If he shows up," I said, "you tell him to call me. And Mike, whatever is inside the house, furniture, electronics, clothes, consider it a bonus. Keep it, sell it, burn it. I do not want to see a single item ever again." "Done," Mike said. I hung up. Jared printed the documents. The sound of the printer was rhythmic, soothing. It sounded like a countdown. I signed the papers. My hand did not shake. My face throbbed with every heartbeat, a dull ache that synchronized with the scratching of the pen on paper. At 10:43 a.m., Jared's computer pinged. "Funds received," he said softly. The wire cleared. "It is done," I said. Jared looked at me. "Technically, Bulldog Flippers owns the property now. They can legally change the locks immediately. Tell them to proceed," I said. "Tell them to board it up if they have to. I want it to look like a fortress by sunset." I stood up and walked to the window of Jared's office, looking down at the busy Chicago streets. Somewhere down there, Bradley was sitting in a meeting, pretending to be a success. Somewhere down there, Vanessa was relaxing in a robe, pretending she was royalty. They had 8 hours. 8 hours until they returned to their castle and found the drawbridge raised and the archers waiting. I touched the bandage on my cheek. 30 slaps, I whispered to the glass. I pulled out my phone. I had one more call to make, not to Bradley, not to Vanessa, but to the private investigator I had kept on retainer for my business dealings. "Find out who holds Bradley's gambling debt," I told the investigator. "I want names, I want amounts, and I want to know exactly what happens to people who do not pay them. I was not going to pay his debts, but I wanted to know exactly how deep the water was before I watched him drown. The house was just the beginning. By the time the sun went down today, Bradley would be homeless. By the end of the week, I intended for him to be jobless." I sat back down and closed my eyes, waiting for the clock to tick. The silence in the room was heavy, but for the first time in 24 hours, the pain in my face felt bearable. It was the anesthesia of action. I was no longer a victim. I was the architect of their ruin. The convoy of black SUVs and the massive dump truck rolled onto the pristine pavement of Lakeshore Drive like a funeral procession for a life that was not quite dead yet. I sat in the passenger seat of Jared's car, watching the steam rise from the exhaust pipes in the frigid Chicago air. It was 10:46 a.m. The neighborhood was quiet, the kind of hushed silence that only money can buy, where the loudest sound is usually a landscaping crew or a delivery van. Today the loudest sound would be the destruction of my son's delusions. Mike Vance, the owner of Bulldog Flippers, stepped out of the lead truck. He looked exactly like the kind of man you hire when you want a problem to disappear, not when you want it solved. He wore a heavy canvas jacket and steel-toed boots that crunched loudly on the salted driveway. He signaled to his crew. 8 men piled out. They were not wearing uniforms with polite name tags. They were wearing hoodies, tactical vests, and expressions of absolute indifference. They carried heavy-duty trash bags, snow shovels, and crowbars. I got out of the car. My cane sank slightly into the snow. The pain in my face was a dull, throbbing rhythm, a constant reminder of why we were here. Jared stayed in the car on a conference call, preparing the legal firewall for the inevitable backlash. But I needed to be inside. I needed to see it. Mike walked up to the front door. He did not bother looking for a hide-a-key. He did not check if it was unlocked. He jammed a heavy demolition tool into the jamb and with one violent, efficient jerk, the wood splintered and the door swung open. The house alarm screamed instantly. It was a piercing shriek designed to panic intruders, but Mike's crew did not even flinch. They walked in as if they were entering a grocery store. I followed them. The inside of the house smelled like stale champagne and expensive cologne, the lingering scent of last night's party. Red plastic cups were scattered on the marble foyer. A half-eaten cake sat on the antique console table. I had bought them as a housewarming gift. It was a snapshot of a life lived without consequences. "Clear it," Mike shouted over the alarm. "Everything goes. If it is not nailed down, it is trash. If it is nailed down, pry it up." The crew moved like locusts. They split up, heading for the living room, the kitchen, and the stairs. I stood in the foyer, watching the dismantling of 5 years of my generosity. One of the men walked past me, carrying the 60-inch television from the living room. He did not unplug the cords carefully. He ripped them out of the wall, leaving jagged holes in the drywall. He walked to the front door and tossed the TV into the snowbank outside like it was a frisbee. Another man was sweeping the contents of the kitchen counters into a black trash bag. The espresso machine, the designer toaster, the crystal wine glasses, crash, smash, gone. I walked up the stairs slowly, my hand trailing on the banister. I could hear the sounds of destruction coming from the master bedroom. This was Vanessa's sanctuary. I pushed the door open. 2 men were in the walk-in closet. It was a room bigger than my first apartment, filled floor to ceiling with Vanessa's vanity. Rows of designer shoes, handbags that cost more than a semester of college, racks of clothes with tags still on them. "Bag it." Mike's voice boomed from the hallway. "Donate it all. The shelter downtown needs coats." The men started grabbing armfuls of silk and cashmere. They stuffed Birkin bags into garbage sacks next to dirty laundry. They took pairs of Louis Vuitton heels and tossed them into a cardboard box labeled Goodwill. There was no sorting. There was no care. A $10,000 dress was treated with the same reverence as a used tissue. I watched a man grab Vanessa's jewelry box. He dumped it upside down into a bag. Necklaces, tangled earrings scattered. It was a